Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of that Halloween Kills movie book club. Tonight we're going to be doing chapters 6 through 10. So I've been reading along. Sorry we haven't been as well. Actually, this was consistent because we did do episode 1 2 weeks ago. I try to do 5 chapters every other week, and hopefully we'll stay on track with this because it's 2 weeks later, and here we are. I didn't get stuck working late. And who's popping in? Hey, what's up? Ryan Underwood is in the hood. What's up, brother? Will Evil die tonight? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We'll see how it goes. Evil might die tonight. So, yeah, welcome. Hopefully, even if you haven't read the novelizations or listened to them, I usually listen to them. I own them, but I listen to them on Audible because I have zero time to actually read. Make some notes. And what we do is we just go chapter by chapter and just to see and compare what may or may not be different in the novelization versus the movie. Now, Halloween Kills, I've already read this, and as I'm going through, there isn't too much of a difference. 2018 did have a lot of differences, and wait until we get to Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends has a lot of differences. There's a lot of great stuff in Ends. So, Ward, what are we watching? No, we're not tonight. Tonight's not a watch along. Tonight it's just a book club where we're going through 5 chapters from the Halloween Kills novelization. We do this every other week. The watch alongs are on Tuesday nights, or if they move around and special holidays. But yeah, watch-alongs are on Tuesday nights. So tonight we're going to start with chapter 6 of the Halloween Kills novelization. So let's see. So they don't have names, but I just give them names just for shits and giggles based on what the chapter contains. So we can go straight into chapter 6. Chapter 6 I'm calling, where is my little notes here? Hold on. Michael Escapes the Flames. And I'm pretty sure you guys can figure out what this is. So we left off. Well, no, one second. I listened to them on the rides to and from work. Ends was much exactly. Wait till we get to Ends. Ends was 1,000 times better than the movie because there was so much more Myers in the Ends novelization that they should have put on screen and made Corey the secondary character. So yeah, definitely. So we left off chapter 5. So chapter 6 picks up with. So now you find out some names that you may or may not know. So Neil Benton is one of the firefighters. So there's 2 firefighters. Well, 3 firefighters in the film, and you don't even know their names because unfortunately they're expendable. But Neil Benton is one of the firefighters that's on that shows up. And he was sitting there thinking, by the time it's a slow burn, so they're getting the call from the firehouse to go to Laurie Strode's house because it's on fire, and they're thinking it's not going to be that bad. But then what happens when they get there? It's just a tinderbox. It's just all totally in flames. So the 3 firefighters that you see get killed in the film, one is Benton, one is Hudson, and one is Alvarado. And and John Weir was also on site. So they do have names. I figured I'd throw them in there just for shits and giggles. So, and he's describing the Halligan bar because it's going to play such a pivotal role, especially in their deaths. And they called it their what do they call it? Their Swiss Army knife, oversized Swiss Army knife. So Benton climbed through the window and just to go inside because the front door was covered in flames. They're basically calling to see if there's anybody in the house, any survivors. That they already know that Laurie Strode's at the house, but they don't know if anybody else is in the house. So let's see. And he's saying, and Benton always had a habit of saying a little prayer in his head every time he entered a burning house or building, saying, "And I hope I get home to my family tonight," which is a little poetic. Hey, what's up, Byron? What's going on? So Then Hudson comes through the window next, and Benton noticed it was a gas-fed fire, and they have the fire because what did she do? Remember she had all those gas lines in the house that was feeding that started the fire, fed the fire. So they have the utilities shut off so they can stop the flow of gas to try to contain the fire. Let's see. So Benton and Hudson are both calling for survivors to see if there's any answer. Benton made his way to the kitchen and notices the island tipped over, and he's scratching his head like, why is this island tipped over? Like, what happened here? Looking around and taking an assessment of thinking like, there's no way the fire started from that. We know it was a gas-fed fire, but what is with the island tipped over? Now he sees the cage with the stairs leading down. So anybody would be like scratching their head like, what the hell is this all about? So see, but what happens, just like in the film, he's walking and calling for survivors, and he falls through the floor because it gives way because of the flames. And when he falls down, let's see, make sure I'm getting everything here. He gets the wind knocked out of him, and his oxygen wasn't working anymore. So, of course, he hits the Mayday button. He's calling Mayday for help. He tried to move, but his back was killing him, so he obviously screwed his back up when he fell. He calls Mayday and waits for help. And he looks over and he's looking around to see if he's trying to pull himself up. He's looking around to see what his surroundings are. And he sees the metal door. And we know what the metal door is. And there's which I don't remember. I have to go back and watch 2018. I don't remember flowers being painted on it. Correct me in the chat or afterwards. But apparently there was flowers painted on the metal door. It probably was. I just don't remember. I haven't watched 2018 in a bit. So he's seen it. He's like, wow, that's odd. What is that metal door? And why are there flowers planted on it? So then just as he's sitting there pondering that, the door rolls up, and what does he see? He sees this figure in dark with this pale face, not realizing it's a mask at first. So he sees Michael come out, and what's the one thing he does notice? He notices on Michael's left hand, he's missing fingers, and there's blood pouring out of his. He's covered in blood, and there's blood dripping from his hand. Saying, "What the hell? Who is this guy in a mask? And what the hell is going on?" Right, exactly right. He saw death, pretty much. You could say that. So Michael grabs a Halligan bar, just like in the film, and starts kicking, and Benton starts hitting back, and we see him flip the Halligan bar over and kill poor Benton by sticking it right in his face mask and killing him. So not too many, no real deviations from the film so far. And Benton's last thought was, he was thinking to himself, because he saw it coming, he knew he was going to die, and he was just wondering, I wonder if my son had a good Halloween. That was his last thought before he died. So Hudson heard Benton scream, and so Hudson would be the guy in the film that's calling for him, and starts reaching his hand down. So Hudson headed to the kitchen to look for Benton. He looks down at the hole in the floor, and he starts reaching his hand down to Benton, saying, "Take my hand." Hudson pulls up Michael and didn't see him until the smoke cleared, just like in the film. And of course, it's obviously an off-screen kill because you don't see him kill him. But Michael kills Hudson and throws him in the hole right on top of Benton. So, which you don't see, it's an off-screen death. Which we just did our top 5 off-screen deaths, which will be on this channel on Monday morning, or go back watch the last week's podcast. So let's see. So Michael is feeling, then we're inside Michael's head. He's feeling the heat, and the breathing is painful, but it doesn't faze him because he has no feeling. But you were inside his head. So he kills Alvarado and John on the way out. So it's 2 other firefighters he kills on the way out. He kicks the front door open and steps on the porch, which is different than the film because he just steps out the front door. The door's still there. It's obvious he hasn't burned down, and he kicks the door down. And basically, he approaches the firemen, just like in the film, and just picks them off one by one till there's none left. And that's how chapter 6 ends. So not too many deviations. We do learn some character names that we probably didn't know. They might be in the credits for the firemen, but they're never mentioned, and you really wouldn't know unless you read the credits. So makes it a little bit more personable about who these firemen are. They have a family, and a little bit of inside of Michael's head of what he's thinking. Byron says, "Love how very descriptive this novel is, and the same goes for the other books You've read it, yeah. That it's nice. That's why we thought it'd be cool to do this because there's so much more. Like I said, there's much more descriptions of things. You're inside, especially when we did. If you go back and do the original Halloween novelization, where we spend a lot of time inside Michael's head, and you're hearing it, thinking what's motivating him and what he's thinking, and how basically he needs to kill to satisfy this urge, and you don't go inside his head for the rest of them. A little bit like tonight, where he's thinking, it's more descriptive than not really being inside his head. But the first one was cool because you were really, really inside his head for most of the novelization. But that's chapter 6. Take a quick drink because I think I'm starting to get another cold. Oh, will this winter ever friggin' end? I'll wet my whistle and we'll go to chapter 7. So chapter 7, I'm calling The Gang at Mick's Bar. So I'm sure you guys know where this is going. So, excuse me. So Lonnie Lamb is having a drink at Mick's Bar. He's enjoying the talent show, just like you see in the film. You see the ventriloquist with the little dummy. And he's visiting. He was visiting. Why am I? Oh, he was wishing. I had the worst handwriting. Sorry, especially when I take notes. He was wishing Lori made it, thinking he may visit her maybe tomorrow. Thinking, well, maybe she got sidetracked or she just got busy. She couldn't make it. And so now we're reintroduced to all the characters, the legacy characters. So Marion was now doing in-home healthcare. She wasn't married. She had no kids. She left Smith's Grove immediately after the events in '78. Lindsay was a florist who had her own shop in town called Flower Works. She was divorced twice and suffered extreme anxiety, and she was highly medicated. And Lindsay also, I remember reading this. Yeah, Lindsay also had a college-age son in California that rarely called her. So there's a little bit more backstory that you don't get in the film on each of these legacy characters. So, and then we flash to Tommy, and Tommy has anger issues, which you see in the film. Tommy has anger issues. He's very irritable, impatient, couldn't hold down a job, several failed relationships. So the events, I guess, just being taunted as a child because he was being teased. And then the events of '78 just really weighed heavily on him. And it did say he was in and out of therapy too. This I thought was this was interesting, which is not mentioned in the film. Nice little nod back to Halloween 5 and 6. Tommy had a thorn ruin tattoo on his arm. So they threw that in there because he believed in all that. And now we go flash to Lonnie, a little bit of a backstory on Lonnie. So Lonnie became obsessed with true crime and the paranormal, visited sites and wrote about them in books. So we do we hear about that? I know we heard about it in did we hear that he wrote books in the movie? Help me out. I don't remember if we did or not. I'm just maybe remember because I read this once before. But yeah, that's what he does. Lonnie was considered a weirdo in town, which we all knew. He did marry. He had Cameron, his son. He divorced, and she moved to St. Louis. Cameron wanted to stay to finish school, so he stayed with his father. Cameron calls Lonnie. So now we're picking up the backstory. It's pretty much over with, where they just give a little exposition on each legacy character. So now Cameron calls Lonnie, just like in the film, and he heads to pick him up. Remember, he called and he said he was mentioning how they found a cop, and so he said, "I'll be right there." So now we flash to the scene at Lori's house, where Sheriff Barker, the stooge, and the other police show up on the scene. So Sheriff Barker and deputies show up at Lori's house, and they got the report about Michael attacking the firefighters, and I guess somebody must have called it in before they all got killed, because how else would they have found out? So Barker called everyone to Lori's after the report of Myers, and the firehouse had. So yeah, so somebody must have called it in. Barker called, and they said they were being attacked, presumably by Myers. So Barker obviously called all available units to go to the house, because the firehouse said they had no more contact with anybody on site. So let me turn my page and see where I am and see what you got there, Brian. Tommy having the thorn tattoo, that's very interesting to me, but I could see why it wasn't in the film because people would probably get confused on what timeline. Yeah, I just, there's another, I think, is it in these chapters? There's another little nod to some of the other movies, and I forget what, when we get to it, I'll think of it. I mean, I know that David Gordon Green tried to put a little bit of each movie, and a lot of, especially this movie, you have major Halloween 3 nods with the Silver Shamrock masks and everything. So I know he tried to put that in there, but this, what they could have did is maybe like in Halloween 5 when you would just see Michael's arm, his wrist rather, and you would see the thorn. Maybe they showed like him at Old Huckleberry, and you saw the thorn. That would have been a nice little Easter egg. So let's see. So Detective Graham arrives with Barker. Detective Graham, if you remember in the film, he was probably the guy that Barker says establish a perimeter, and he's calling it in, saying that we have a person on the loose, and it's Michael Myers. So I think that's probably who would be Detective Graham. They see body parts and blood everywhere, so obviously it's a massacre, just like in the film. He's like, we got ourselves a goddamn massacre. So but meanwhile, this whole thing, you got to remember, Hawkins Cruiser's over there with the two dead police officers in it. So they just finally get over there and look at it, and that's when you see the film where Barker's looking through the window and he sees Detective Francis. And I'm forgetting the other guy's name. Francis is Christopher Nelson. I forget the other guy's name. So he sees them and they're dead. And he in the novels, the author there, Tim Wagner calls it the Francis O'Lantern, because his head was carved out to be a jack-o'-lantern with the flashlight in it. So that's the Francis O'Lantern. Richards. I did write it down because I knew I'd forget it. So Richards and Francis. So Richards was the other police officer. And he's saying, of course, we got a massacre, establish a perimeter, just like in the film. They had dogs on scene to pick up Myers' scent, which you don't see in the film. There's dogs there. He gives the same speech, just like the film. Being, basically like giving out, say like the word, he's on the loose, and everybody keep an eye out for him. And that's how chapter 7 ends. So let's see where we're going. So chapter 8, what are we calling chapter 8? Drum roll, please. Chapter 8 is The Man in a Monster Mask. I'm sure you could figure this one out too. So now we're flashing to Sandra and Phil. I believe his name is Phil. Yep, Sandra and Phil's house, just like in the film. Sandra is the groundskeeper at the cemetery where Judith Myers was from part 1. So we flash to Sandra, and she's playing with her drone, which they say in this Phil had given to her as a gift for her birthday. Now Phil's description is much different than the Phil we got in the film. So Phil is described in the novelization as heavyset, bald, with a Santa beard, completely opposite of the Phil in the film. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So scene plays out where he's talking about the CPAP. I think your mother borrowed the CPAP. It smells like Lucky Strikes. So all the dialogue is pretty much the same. They give a little backstory of Phil, who was retired from the water plant, and Sandra still worked at the graveyard, which we know. And they were talking, and of course, just like in the film, that ain't cigarettes you smoke. You smell Laurie Strode's house on fire. So that's all pretty much the same there. So what they make mention of here is she's playing with that drone, and she was trying to break his balls. She was trying to buzz him in the head, and that's how she loses control, and that's when it goes flying into the bathroom. So obviously it goes just like in the film. It goes in there, and he says, "Give me that controller, or I'll figure it out." And then what happens? Michael crushes it and throws it, and they're like, "Wait a second, who the hell's in there?" So Phil starts approaching, just like in the film. Before he even turns the light on, it's a little bit more descriptive here, saying Phil smelled the smoke from Michael's clothes. Just like he smelled like, what the hell is that? Because I'm sure Michael probably stunk to high heaven, not only of fire, but he had to like fucking stink to begin with. Then, of course, what happens? He turns the light on. Michael smashes it. He sees Michael, and Michael smashes the light right away. And then, of course, like I've titled this chapter, he comes right out. Call the police. There's a man in a monster mask in the bathroom. So some of this plays out a little bit different from what I remember when I read this. Let's see. Michael does pull him through the window, just like in the film, and basically stabs him, pulls him down on the glass, just like in the film. Michael comes into the kitchen, grabs a fluorescent bulb, and smashes it, and it sticks in Sandra's neck. Oh, that's pretty much the same. Only difference here is that in here, it makes note that the bulb fills up with blood and Sandra dies. So if she was dead in the novelization. Obviously, we know she appears in a wheelchair and she can't talk in Halloween Ends, but in the novelization, it says she dies. And it says that Phil gets up and goes to the kitchen. So now he's laying on the ground in the film, and Michael comes and drags him into the kitchen so she could watch him stabbing her husband several times in the back with all those different knives. Novelization, he's still alive. So he gets up and comes into the kitchen and charges Michael because he sees he killed his wife. Then Michael pushes him on the counter on his back. So now he's on his back. He's still alive. He's facing Michael. And that's when Michael grabs the knives and starts sticking them in him while he's still alive and facing him. So they changed a little bit, which probably would have been a little bit more creepy and much more violent to see the look on his face if he saw all this coming. Let's see. Yeah, that's how it ends. He sees Michael going for the knives. Michael starts stabbing Phil while he's looking at him instead of stabbing him in the back. Yeah, so that probably would have played. That's much more frightening because he was basically for all intents and purposes probably either passed out or dead when in the film when he throws him down facing down because he's not moving. So he's stabbing him. He's not even flinching because he's probably dead at that point. But here, he's facing him and he sees it coming and he's still alive. Some scary shit. All right, so that's how chapter 8 ends. And what are we calling chapter 9? Let's see. So chapter 9, I'm calling John's at the Myers house. Right? Why? Because we have multiple Johns at the Myers house. And I'm not talking about the bathrooms. Take a quick sip of something. What's that? Myers Phil fighting back against Michael would have been really cool to see. And Sandra should have stayed dead, bringing her back in ends. Absolutely. 2 points I agree 100% with. Phil fighting back would have been very, very cool to see. Him coming to the rescue of his wife and facing Michael while Michael basically is testing, seeing which knife he likes the best. This is pretty frightening. And there was absolutely zero reason to bring her back in ends in a wheelchair for that whole scene with her sister yelling at Laurie. There was really no need for that. So I totally agree with you. All right, so let's meet the Johns at the Myers house. All right, so we're starting in the hospital. We're back at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital, and Laurie is going in and out of consciousness, and she's dreaming she's having this dream where she sees multiple Michaels coming after her. And she sees them all holding different weapons, like they're all going to attack her and kill her. And here we have Karen, just like in the film, which would never happen in a million years. Karen making her way to the morgue. Most hospitals have their morgue probably at the bottom floor. Most don't have windows, and most are probably locked. Here in the film, they're on the same floor as the emergency room. They have windows, and nothing's locked. The complete opposite of what would really happen. So Karen made her way to the morgue because she was looking for Ray. And it does because obviously you're thinking Ray probably was incinerated in that fire. And she does think to herself, and she says, she just wanted to look because she's upset. It's starting to hit her now that they're away from Michael. They think he's dead. Now it's starting to settle in that her husband was killed. So I guess she figures, let me go see if they had his body. But she's like, I don't think so because he was probably incinerated in that fire. So she did think that to herself. Yeah, she believes he probably would have been cremated. He probably wasn't there. And the orderly comes in yelling at it, saying she can't be in there. So, which would happen any place else, probably. And the surgeon comes in to tell Karen that Laurie's surgery was a success and she's resting and everything. She should pull through. So Karen sees Allison and they hug. They talk about Ray, just like in the film when they're sitting on the stairs, saying, "Oh, he'll always be with us." So, yeah, they do make mention of that. So now we flash to the Myers house. Now we're going to get introduced to Big John and Little John. So I don't, yeah, they didn't make any mention of their last name. So John Massey, which is Little John, was cutting cheese and fruit in the Myers house in that charcuterie board, just like the film, um, in the pirate costume. And Little John, whose name is John Soto, calls for John, just like in the film, and he startles him, just like in the remember he's doing the whole dance where he's smoking a spliff and he's dancing. And it makes mention that they got their names by friends to make it easier when addressing them. But they thought it would be funny to switch them around because obviously one's taller and he's Little John, and the shorter one is Big John. And it makes mention that Big John always said, "Well, that's not because of anything other than that he has a bigger member." So that's what they do make mention of that. And of course, just like in the film, he says, "Let's get high and get dance and watch spooky movies." And then what happens? The bell rings, and then Little John goes and answers the door. I'm going to jump in the chat and see what's going on. Myron says, multiple Myers standing over Laurie and Laurie's nightmares could have been really cool to see play out on screen, and Karen at the morgue is a deleted scene on the DVD. It is the deleted scene? I don't remember that. I thought I saw the deleted scenes. I don't remember that. I do remember she does look through the window. I remember she's looking, but I don't remember. Yeah, maybe I have to go back and watch the deleted scene. I thought I watched them all, but I might have missed that one. Truth be told, I haven't watched Halloween Kills in a bit. Hey, Frank, what's up, man? How you doing? Hey, Princess of Horror, what's going on? Everybody join in. So we're just discussing Chapter 9, and we're in the Myers house with the two Johns. That doesn't sound good. Let's see. The bell rings. So we're at the point where the bell rings, and Little John goes and answers the door. And just like the film, there's a little girl standing there. She's holding Silver Shamrock witch mask, and says the whole thing. We got the candy bar here, and my friend ate the candy bar, and there was a razor blade in it. And then of course he sees the little girl with the razor blade, and she's laying on the ground, just like in the film. And he calls for Big John. Door, and then of course the door slams, and they realize that they've been had. That the one kid runs in there, steals all their candy, and then they proceed to tell him the story of whose house is this. This is Michael Myers, and you're not supposed to come in his house on Halloween night unless you're invited. And of course, they don't give a shit. Who the hell is that? Whatever. And then of course, Big John says, "This is Michael Myers' house. He stabbed his sister in the tits," just like in the film, which is a stupid line. And then he says, "When the wind blows, you can hear Judith say, 'Michael, get out of my room,'" is what he said. He's just trying to scare the shit out of the kids, just like in the film. And then they slunk off because they do get a little creeped out, just like the film, and they run off. And the Johns go back in the house. They go back in the house to dance. So it's a quick chapter, Chapter 9. So yeah, so Chapter 9 is the Johns at the Myers house. Interesting. And let's see where we're going here. So the last chapter for this show tonight is Chapter 10, and then we'll meet again in 2 weeks. So Chapter 10, I'm calling Love Saves the Day, but don't say it. Don't say it. So now we're back at Mick's bar, and Tommy sees he's like, they see they're out of champagne, so he wants to get some more champagne. The conversation stopped. There's not much talk going on, and then Tommy gets the alert on his phone, because remember the scene where everybody's phone started blowing up in the film when they were in the bar, and of course he sees it, and like everybody else sees it. And Marion is watching the TV on the bar and says, "Tommy, look," and so does Lindsay. And everybody sees the news story about the murders. They see Julian interviewed on the film. Tommy's watching and he's remembering. It's taking him back to he's sympathizing with Julian because that was basically him. Halloween 40 years before. He was a little kid being babysat, and Myers came and tried to kill him and his babysitter. In this case, Myers succeeded and killed Vicky. He's thinking, and then Tommy's thinking back to when he was a child, how he used to like to make bird whistling noises and to calm himself down. Remember, because if you remember in the film, Lonnie says he makes these. He's a master bird whistler, so I guess that's what Lonnie was alluding to in the film. So the news report says that 2 patients are still at large. No names are mentioned, of course. Old news footage does come on, which would have been cool if they made some type of montage on the screen. So they flash back, say, eerily reminiscent of events that were 40 years ago that night. And here they're showing news footage of the killing spree in 78, which would have been cool if they could have pieced together different pieces, of just basically like they did take pieces of Halloween 2 where they see where they're wheeling Annie out and everything. It would have been kind of cool. Let's see. There's footage of and then also in that footage is footage of Tommy and Lindsay that night too. So it's, obviously you have to find actors that look like that, but that would have been cool to see them maybe by the ambulance in the new somebody looked like Robert Mundy, right? 2 people are dead tonight. 3 people are dead tonight. Yeah, good old Robert Mundy. And then the footage flashes and shows the front area where Marcus and Vanessa's house is. And of course they noticed Julian. They said, shit, that's our house. It's right there. So that's when they decide to leave. And they said, we got to get going. So, and of course, Tommy's sitting there saying it has to be Michael. Who else could it be? Who else would do this shit on Halloween night? And it's his night 40 years later. So he knows it's Myers. So Marcus and Vanessa leave. Vanessa is thinking about Michael being near their house and she's all freaked out. Marcus realizes, of course, just like in the film, that he forgot his stethoscope, and he went inside to get it from Marion because Marion was playing with it. He throws Vanessa the keys, and she goes towards the car, just like in the film. And Vanessa gets in, and of course, this is a call back to when Annie got in the car, and she sees the condensation from the breathing, and she's wondering what the hell it is. And then she turns around, screams because she sees Stavoli, and she runs out of the car, just like in the film. Marcus comes out just as she's running and tells him that Michael is in the car, and he says, go get him. And he's like, screw that, just like the film. Like, I ain't fucking going here. Michael Myers is in that car. I'm not going over there. So Vanessa runs in and tells everybody, and of course, Tommy grabs old Huckleberry, and then what does Tommy do? He puts money in the donate jar, and on the donate jar it says what? Love lives today. And what does Marion say? But evil dies tonight, and that starts the downward trend right there. What's that, Byron? My first thought was that Marcus and Vanessa were Julian's parents, but that wasn't. Yeah. You almost thought that too, but it would have made more sense. I think it would have been more a little personal too if they had been the parents. They could have been out the whole time. You didn't need to see them leaving that house. They could have just been the parents that were out, and then you met them at Mick's bar. I definitely agree. Where did I go? So obviously, Marion says evil dies tonight. Ugh. Everybody goes outside, led by Tommy, and Tommy walks towards the Ford Fiesta. So apparently it was a Ford Fiesta. I don't know if it was in the film. Maybe it was. And of course it starts, and you hear opera playing just like in the film. Tivoli starts it, and he's flipping through the stations. It stops on opera. Tommy says, let's give this asshole a beat down. Tommy slammed the bat on the hood of the car, and then the Fiesta took off around the corner, just like in the film. Goes around the corner, and it crashes right around the corner, just like in the film. And that's how chapter 10 ends. These were short chapters. A lot of the other chapters seem to be a lot longer. But there was only a handful of differences, of a few different, a few things that I think that would have been cool had they put it in the film, just like Byron and I were saying. I think the footage, if they flash back the footage from Halloween night in 78, some way they put that together, that would have been super cool. If they would have showed Tommy's thorn tattoo, didn't have to make a mention of it. It could have just been him holding the bat, and you saw it like, hey, is that thorn tattoo? Like a nice little Easter egg. A few things here. But so far, the only thing that's really starting, that's going to start the downward trend with this film, is the evil dies tonight starts. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember, it's got to be said just as many annoying times in the book from when I only read the book, read the book once, or listened to it, I should say, to remember every little detail. That's why I'd like to pick 5 chapters, because I listen, I'll take notes to make sure I don't miss anything. So it's easier than, saying, okay, let's do 10 chapters every 2 weeks, because it takes time. You figure just these 5 chapters takes about 2+ hours to listen to. So, but that's the 5 chapters for this week. Get this out of the way. And so we're going to meet again in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, we'll do episode 3, chapters 11 through 15, and see where that goes. And I believe there's 25. I think there's 25 chapters. Hold on, I got the novelization right here. So if it's 25 chapters, there's 1, 2, so there'll be 3 more episodes left. I think there's 25. Give me a minute. And that's why I broke it up into 5s. Yep, there's 25 chapters, so there'll be 3 more episodes to go through. 3 more 5-chapter episodes. And yeah, so we have that to look forward to. Make sure you do homework. We'll be back here in 2 weeks, provided I don't get stuck. Every time I plan this, I always get stuck working late. So, but fortunately, this week I didn't get stuck working late. Hopefully it doesn't happen next week either. But you Halloween fans out there too, we just recorded this. I just have to finish editing, so make sure you check out our one of the other podcasts we're doing that's all Halloween centric, the Halloween and Michael Myers Collectors podcast. We filmed this the other night. Got to finish editing it and probably be out maybe this weekend. So it's focusing basically on the collecting aspect of Halloween. And of course, we're going to talk Halloween. We're going to bring guest collectors on. We're going to bring mask makers on. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. We had so much fun doing this the other night. It's all going to be pre-recorded episodes, but there'll be a couple. We'll probably throw some live ones in there just for shits and giggles. And hopefully you guys join us for that. And that's really it. That is it for this week. Check the chat, see what's going on. I said Byron here. Everybody, thanks everybody that tuned in. I see a lot more people watch this after the fact, which is fine. But it's great when people chime in and they chat and talk about the novelization, especially if you read it. And if you didn't, go check it out. Audible always gives you 1 month free, and you get 2 books. So if you want to blow through Halloween Kills, and if it ends, you can do it for free, because you get that first. I think you get a whole month for free. I forget. Listening up while painting. Painting, what kind of painting? Painting the house or just painting a portrait? Just curious if you're a painter. That's cool if you are. Yeah, I always put like not like audiobooks and like podcasts. That's what I listen to basically when I'm driving, and it's just listening to different subjects, mainly anything to do with Kiss, Halloween, music in general. That's what I really listen to, or horror. A Supergirl model kit? Really? What is that new? Is that a vintage one? A Supergirl model kit? I never saw that. It's not like it's not like a replica of Helen Slater, right? From that film? I had no idea. Never heard of that. That's pretty cool. And you don't see that too many too much these days. As a kid, especially those that might be around my age. Shout out to Mean Machine Radio Show. I know you're around my age. When we were kids, I remember that's all we used to do was build models and paint them. We used to build classic cars. We used to build ships, and used to go to the store to be tons and tons of models. And that's all we used to do was build models, and you don't even see them anymore. Greg says, a lot of people don't know this, but I was the voice of the Shape in the first 2 Halloween movies. Nice. I love to show you the Myers kit I painted. I struggle with the color of his. Do you follow on Instagram or the collectors group or on Facebook? Yeah, so I'd love to see it. That'd be really cool. And do you have a collection? If you have a collection, start watching the Collectors Podcast. We're gonna bring some guest collectors on. I know we have a few lined up that are friends of ours that were on our old Collectors Podcast. So we do have a few people that want to come on and show their collections, and it's some amazing collections. You think I got a lot of shit? It's a few of our friends that have more than I do. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, figure out all the links are below. So hit me up on Instagram, send a picture, or on Facebook or whatever. That'd be cool as hell to see it. And Greg, I apologize. One of these days, maybe if you're around this weekend, I'll hit you up. and maybe we'll talk. We'll chat. Past couple of months, I'll explain why everything just flipped upside down for me in my work world. Made a mention of you and your channel on my last broadcast. Did you? Oh, awesome! Thanks, I appreciate it. I have to go back and catch up on some of yours. I have listened to them. I don't usually catch them live. I think you went live on Sunday, and I tried to catch it. And but I was out and about with a friend of mine, so it was hard to catch it. But yeah, definitely, I'll hit you up over the weekend, and we'll chat. We'll catch up, and I'll give you an update on what's been taking up all my time, and kind of slowed things down on this channel a little bit on my personal stuff. Not my personal stuff, but some of the standalone videos I've been doing. I've been trying to get them out there. I have a bunch of other stuff, but work just got crazy, and I'll explain. What's up, Eric? Comic books and model islands were the place. Oh, they were. They were. I mean, my brother and I, that's all we used to do. Like, who was it? Was it AMC was one of the companies. We used to build all their models. And my brother was a nitwit. My brother's 6 years older than me. He would build these models and spend all this time, but then he'd take them outside and blow them up. Go figure. Yeah, that was his thing. But yeah, I used to love to build models. And kids nowadays, people nowadays don't have the patience. It takes patience to put those models together, to paint them. Maybe you used to have to put the decals on. The ones you used to have to get wet. They weren't stickers. And I remember, as you guys know, I'm a big Kiss fan. I remember building the Kiss model van. And yeah, you don't see that stuff. Maybe if you go to Hobby, I've never been to a Hobby Lobby, but I know there's some hobby stores that have them. I wonder if they're collectible now. I don't even know, because you don't even see them anymore. I wonder if they're like a collectible thing now, collecting models, like still in the boxes. Because I remember we used to just get all the ones that were strictly classic cars and ships and some planes. But nowadays, no. And then you get a nice little buzz too from the glue. Because, we would just sit there and do it in our room. We used to share a room, and the whole room would be filled with the fumes. We'd have ourselves a nice little buzz. Vintage. So vintage kids are. I kind of figured it would be a collectible thing, because you don't really see it anymore. Some kids, I remember telling my kids stories about the models, and they're like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" No idea. You don't see them anywhere. Never see them in stores anymore. So yeah, that's crazy. But yeah, we exactly we do a nice little sit upstairs, and you come in, and we have our eyes a little glassy because maybe seeing their glue and everything with that what kind of glue was that? I mean, it was called model glue, but whatever was in it, man, holy crap! Used to get a real nice buzz from that stuff. Universal monsters that glowed. Yeah, I remember those. I never had them, but I know exactly which you're talking about. Yep. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff from the 70s. If you're my age, I'm 52, 70s, early 80s. The one thing I used to love, I think I mentioned on one of the podcasts, I used to love the shrunken heads, which, it was the Vincent Price shrunken head kit. And it was basically just like rotted apples, but it was so much fun. It was messy as all hell. Because when you're a kid, you don't give a shit. You like to get messy. Now I'm too lazy. But yeah, just some fun stuff. But yeah, thanks for everybody that joined in tonight and chatted. I hope you guys join us again in 2 weeks for episode 3. We'll do the next 5 chapters, and we'll be back on. We're obviously here every Sunday for the podcast. And we'll be back on Tuesday. I don't know what we're watching next Tuesday. I don't know what the watch along is. I'll have to figure it out. We'll let everybody know. And we'll go from there. You did Vampire. Really? Yeah, hit me up on Instagram if you can. If you're on Instagram, send some pictures. I'd love to see it. We'll throw them up here. We're doing the collector's thing too. Byron, take care. Oh, I saw you sent me something. I've been so busy. I have to go back and check it. I think you sent me another updated thing for Reborn. If I get a chance tonight, I'll read it. Definitely. But thanks everybody for hanging out tonight. Make sure you guys come back on Sunday for the podcast. 2 weeks for the next 5 chapters. Like, subscribe, comment, all that happy horse shit, and we'll go from there. Maybe it's time to start the Friday the 13th series watch. We should. That's a good idea, Ryan. Yeah, we have not done that. We did not do the Friday the 13th watch alongs yet. I think we did. Did we do 2? Did we do any of them? But Ryan, I don't remember. Did we do any of them? I have to check the database if we did any of them, but that's not a bad idea. Maybe we can start that. I have no problem with that. Especially, maybe we can. I have to see if it lines up, because remember, we just did our movies turning 40 just this past weekend. Friday the 13th Part 4 is turning 40 this year, so maybe we can align it so it lands right around that time. The episode with a gold compact is my fave. Episode with the gold compact. Help me out. What episode? I'm sorry. I'm not understanding. No, I don't think we did. So that's not a bad idea. Maybe I'll tell the boys who couldn't make it tonight. Brett was still working, and I don't know where Joe is. I didn't hear from Joe. Maybe I know he works some long hours too, so maybe he didn't hop on, or they just didn't do their homework. They didn't do their homework. But yeah, we could definitely do that. Maybe we'll start that. Maybe we'll start with the OG. Friday the 13th this Tuesday, and we'll go from there. But I'm curious, what episode with the gold compact? Which one? Okay, here we go. Friday. Oh no, the TV series. Oh no, we were talking about we're just going to do the movies first, but that's not a bad idea. I did like the TV series. I don't know why I didn't get as much love. I did enjoy the TV series. I used to watch that. I gotcha. What we are starting to do, if any of you anybody out there is fans of Tales from the Dark Side, one of my favorite TV shows next to the Twilight Zone. We're going to start doing. I think we're going to start doing 3 episodes of the clip because they're only about 20 minutes long without the commercials. We're going to be doing Tales from the Dark Side watch-alongs where we go episode by episode. There's only five seasons, yeah, and they're just awesome. I love Tales from the Dark Side. Those of my age group know I used to ride my bike home every Saturday night to catch the latest episode. Loved it. Shout out to the late great George Romero. That was his show. Good stuff. A lot of guest cameos in some of those episodes as well. Some great stuff. But that's not a bad idea too. Friday the 13th. We should just do a horror TV series where we do horror TV watch-alongs. Just maybe start with Tales from the Dark Side. We can do Friday the 13th. We can do the Chucky series. Yeah. And if we start the Twilight Zone, I'll be in my glory. But yeah, so I'm gonna head out because I'm starting to lose my voice. I've got to be getting a cold again. This sucks ass. This winter's killing me. But everybody in the chat, thanks so much for reaching out. Byron, Ryan, Eric, Raccoon. I'm gonna call you Raccoon Eyes because I don't know your full name. And Greg, I'll reach out to you this weekend. Definitely, we have to catch up. And hopefully we'll see you guys in 2 weeks or see you guys on Sunday night. And until then, where is my outro? Where the hell is it? There it is. All right, guys. If I don't talk to you till Sunday, everybody have a good weekend. Thanks for coming by.